All right, so let's dive into something I think we can all agree is a little bit weird. Money. It's fascinating how something so straightforward, like, I don't know, numbers on a screen or, bills in your wallet, can really make us act in ways that we don't understand, which is why I'm so excited about your pick for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. I mean, who doesn't want to understand their own money quirks just a little bit better?
What's brilliant about this book is it really shifts the focus. It moves away from this idea that you have to be some kind of financial genius to be good with money, and really emphasizes more like your behavior, your ingrained habits and reactions to money more than anything else.
And he illustrates this with some seriously compelling stories. Like, on the one hand, you have this tech executive who's, rolling in money and literally throws gold coins into the ocean to deal with his insecurities. Wild. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Ronald Reed, this janitor in Vermont who just quietly invested his savings over like decades and ended up leaving millions to his library and local hospital. It's incredible.
Classic. Slow and steady wins the race.
Right.
That contrast between the, tech exec and the janitor really sets the stage for what I think is the big question we're exploring in this deep dive. Why does finance seem to be the one field where someone with zero formal training can actually outperform the experts? And that's where I think the psychology of money comes in.
Yeah.
Understanding those often irrational forces that really drive our decisions.
Okay, so one of the things that really struck me early on in the book was Housel's chapter called No One's Crazy. He basically makes this point that what might seem like utterly bonkers to you could be perfectly logical to somebody else, given their experiences and circumstances. It's like we're all coming at money from these different perspectives.
Exactly. Our financial decisions are like fingerprints, unique to each of us. We don't make these choices in a vacuum. Our backgrounds, upbringing, the economic climate we've lived through, all of this creates a kind of personal money map that really guides us.
I love that. A money map. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
It's a great way to think about it. It's like, okay, think about folks who buy lottery tickets every week. To someone with a comfortable financial cushion, spending money you need on such long odds might seem crazy. But Housel actually points out that for someone struggling to make ends meet, that lottery ticket might be the closest thing they have to a tangible dream. It's the only way they can see themselves getting ahead.
It's almost like a rational choice.
Totally. And even ideas that we just take for granted these days, like saving for retirement, are relatively new concepts in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's true. Before World War II, retirement as we know it today barely existed for most people. The expectation was to work until you couldn't anymore. So it's no wonder we're still collectively trying to figure out things like 401ks and index funds,
Totally. It's like we just learned to walk.
Yeah.
And now we're expected to run a marathon.
Exactly.
Right.
It's a lot.
Okay, so this actually makes me feel a little bit better about my own financial fumbles over the years, knowing that a lot of this is pretty new stuff. But it also raises this question. If our individual experiences are so powerful, how do we even begin to make sense of them when it comes to money?
Well, Housel brings up this fascinating research by economists Ulrich Melmandier and Stefan Nagel. And they discovered that people's investment choices are strongly influenced by the economic conditions they experience during their younger years.
Oh, interesting. So someone who came of age during, I don't know, like the booming stock market of the late 90s might be more comfortable with risk, whereas someone who lived through a recession might be way more cautious.
Precisely. It's like, think about it this way. Someone born in 1970, they witnessed the stock market surge during those formative years, whereas someone born in 1950, when the market was basically flat, would have a totally different perception of risk and reward.
Totally.
And these different experiences affect not just investing, but how we view money in general.
Okay, so it's like we're all playing the same money game, but with entirely different rule books in our heads.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's got to have some serious implications for how we approach financial decisions, right?
Absolutely. I think understanding that our individual kind of money maps are shaped by our past experiences can actually help us make more objective financial decisions today.
Interesting.
It allows us to start to question those ingrained assumptions and biases, and perhaps make choices that are more aligned with our current reality, rather than being,
driven by the ghosts of economic events past. Okay, so we're starting to see how powerful that personal history is. But what about when we think we're being rational, but our emotions still kind of hijack our best intentions?
Right.
Like, that's where I feel like the whole psychology of money thing really kicks in.
Right. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We're taught that finance is all about,
Yeah.
hard numbers and logic and formulas. But it's the psychology of money that really often trips us up.
For sure, totally. And to kind of illustrate that, Housel introduces us to these two very different figures. You have Ronald Reed, the janitor that we talked about before.
Right.
And then you have Richard Fuscone, this Harvard-educated Wall Street exec. So Reed, through patience and steady investing, amasses a fortune over decades. Fuscone, despite his education and experience, ends up bankrupt after making these impulsive and greed-driven decisions.
Yeah, and those contrasting stories are a powerful reminder that sometimes patience and discipline can trump even the fanciest degrees and, years of experience.
Totally.
Because, let's be honest, we rarely make financial decisions in a calm, perfectly rational setting.
Right. It's usually at the kitchen table agonizing over bills.
Exactly.
Or in a stressful meeting at work. Yeah.
Right.
It's hardly the ideal environment for making level-headed choices about money.
Right, and that's where I think understanding our own kind of financial psychology becomes so crucial. Housel doesn't offer some magical formula for getting rich quick, but he does provide a framework for understanding, how we think about money.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What are some of the key takeaways from the book that we can actually apply to our own lives?
One of the biggest is the power of long-term thinking. Housel emphasizes this incredible force of compounding, how small, consistent investments over time can really lead to significant wealth. But he's also, I think, realistic about how challenging delayed gratification can be.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to get tempted by those get-rich-quick schemes.
Exactly.
But building wealth sustainably usually requires a lot of patience and discipline, which can be tough when you're constantly bombarded with, messages about instant success and,
Yeah, and this whole kind of, microwave mentality, I want it, and I want it now. Another key takeaway, I think, is accepting risk as an inherent part of the journey. Avoiding risk altogether can actually be riskier in the long run because you miss out on potential growth.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about being cautious, but about being smart about the risks we take.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about understanding your own risk tolerance and aligning your investment choices with that. And remember, risk isn't just about losing money. It's also about missing opportunities.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good point. So I'm seeing a pattern here. It seems like the key to success with money isn't necessarily about mastering these complex formulas, but about cultivating the right mindset and behaviors.
Yeah, you got it. And a lot of those behaviors actually go against our natural instincts. We're wired to seek immediate rewards and avoid uncertainty. But in the world of finance, those tendencies can actually lead to costly mistakes.
For sure. So how do we rewire our brains to think more like, Ronald Reed, the patient investor, and less like, someone throwing their wealth into the ocean?
Well, it all starts with awareness, I think. By understanding the psychological biases that influence our decisions, we can start making more conscious and deliberate choices.
Yeah.
For example, if you know that you tend to be impulsive, you can actually put systems in place to slow down your decision-making process so that you're not, reacting emotionally.
Yeah, and one thing that really helps these concepts stick for me is how Housel uses, it's personal stories and historical examples. When he talks about how our investment choices are shaped by the economic events we've lived through, that really resonates with me.
Yeah, me too. For me, it was growing up during the dot-com bubble burst. Witnessing that firsthand definitely shaped my perspective on speculative investments. I remember watching Friends and Family. Gotta get caught up in all the hype, pouring your savings into these tech stocks that unfortunately, crashed. So it was a tough lesson in the dangers of, getting caught up in market frenzy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think for me, it was the 2008 financial crisis. I was just starting my career.
Yep.
And seeing the markets crash and the economy teetering on the brink was a real wake-up call. It made me realize, how important diversification is and having a long-term perspective.
It's fascinating how these, share experiences shape an entire generation's attitude towards money.
Yeah.
And it highlights why I think conversations like these are so valuable. We can learn from each other's financial journeys gain new perspectives.
Exactly. And it's not a one-time lesson,
Right.
the psychology of money. It's something we navigate throughout our lives, constantly adapting our behaviors and mindsets as we encounter these new challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, and perhaps that's the most important takeaway from this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving some impossible level of financial perfection, but about embracing the very human side of money
Yeah.
and trying to make the best decisions we can with the knowledge and experience we have.
Oh, I love that. It's about progress, not perfection.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic.
But sadly, our time is up.
It is. There's always more to explore.
There is. But don't worry. In our next deep dive, we'll be tackling another fascinating financial journey. Get ready to unravel the secrets of Bill Gates' incredible success.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Until then, happy investing, everyone. And remember, keep those psychological biases in check. Yeah, it really is. And once we acknowledge those biases, we can start to be more open to different perspectives and potentially make more informed decisions.
Totally. So what about you? What would you say was your defining economic event?
For me, I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, the dot-com bubble burst. Witnessing that firsthand really instilled a healthy dose of skepticism, I think, when it comes to speculative investments.
Yeah.
And also a strong appreciation for, value investing. What about you? What's your money moment?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think for me it was definitely the 2008 financial crisis. Like I said, I was just starting my career and seeing the markets crash and the economy kind of teetering on the brink was a real wake-up call. It made me realize how important diversification is and having a long-term perspective for sure.
It's pretty amazing how these, large-scale events can shape an entire generation's approach to money. And it just, highlights the importance of conversations like these where we can share our different experiences and learn from each other.
Absolutely. And it's not a one-time lesson, right? The psychology of money, it's something we navigate throughout our lives, constantly adapting and shifting our behaviors and mindsets as we encounter new challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, and maybe that's the biggest takeaway from our deep dive today. It's not about achieving some impossible level of financial perfection, but about understanding, I think, the human side of money and making the best decisions we can with, what we know.
Well said. Well said. It's about progress, not perfection.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I feel like we've really just scratched the surface of this topic, but sadly, our time is up.
I agree. There's always more to explore.
Always. But don't worry, in our next deep dive, we'll be tackling another fascinating financial journey. Get ready to unravel the secrets of Bill Gates' incredible success.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. Until then, happy investing, everyone. And remember, keep those psychological biases in check.
Absolutely.